You're popular. See, that's what that is.
Yeah. Oh, okay, I'm sorry. Can you come back up? And you may continue.
Thank you, Your Honor. Mr. Wood, if you would look, I'd like you to look at Exhibit 6 and specifically Exhibit 6-4, that page, and direct your attention to question and answer number 10. Last page of Exhibit 6. Okay, can you see that?
Yeah.
Okay, now first of all, is that your signature on that document?
Yes.
Okay, and did you sign that before a notary?
Yes.
Now, let's look at number 10. And the question was, how did you determine the price you would quote grade for the Great Lakes apparatus? And your answer was, after I designed the new job, I spoke with the controller of GL, I assume that's Great Lakes, correct?
Yep.
To get internal standard pricing information. I also requested and received several quotes from outside vendors, many of whom I did business with for more than 20 years, for those parts and services Great Lakes did not provide. From this, I put together a bill of materials, BOM, and priced the job out. Is that how that worked for Great Lakes?
Yeah, I put together all the components onto a piece of paper and then gave it to Steve. Yeah.
So you had to design the job first, right?
Yes.
Then you got quotes and figured out internal pricing and outside pricing, correct?
Correct.
And you put that together to build a bill of materials, correct?
Yes.
To price the job out, and then you could quote it, correct?
Yeah, then Steve could quote it. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, would Steve know any of this information if you didn't tell him?
No.
So he would be like Penny was at CFF and would take the information you provided and put it into a quote, correct?
Yes.
Now, is that the same process you used that you just described that you used when you were at Great Lakes, when you were at CFF?
Is it the exact same thing?
The same process where you had to design it first, then get quotes from internal and outside sources, get a bill of materials and price it out, and then be able to make a quote for the customer.
Yeah, before you'd have a full job, them things would have to come in place unless, like in Robert Mann's SE16 when we did it, it was a building process. So we were building in increments as we went.
So now if you could look, we're done with Exhibit 6 for right now. So if you could look at Exhibit 8, please. Do you recognize this?
Because I seen it in your exhibit, yes.
Okay.
This again was prepped on Penny's computer.
Right. If you look at the bottom of this and turn it upside down, there's some dates and it looks like maybe a fax thing from Graves Carpet Cleaning in 1/15 of 2021. Was this sent to you by Graves in January of 2021?
Was it sent to me?
Yeah.
No.
Do you know who it was sent to? It was 2021.
I don't know. You have this. I mean, so either you got it or Sean got it. I didn't get it.
Okay. Have you seen this document before?
This exact document, no, not until it was provided in your court papers.
Okay.
I mean, it was emailed to me.
Did you provide information to CFF so that CFF could quote a machine using Cymex scrubbers to Graves?
Yes, if you look at these are both. You see the quote number on it's 83 on both exhibits, correct? Same
You
date.
said number 7, correct?
7 and 8 both are identical. So the only difference between the two is that the second one was modified to include more things. So you can see the crane rental, and you can see the shipping with the truck is the same, but the meal expense went to 24 for 12 days of work. Hotel expense, 11 nights. Labor, 40 hours, 16 hours, them numbers all got somewhat filled in as a rough estimate of what I thought it was going to take to do the job at his place.
And you provided all of that information, correct?
Yes, there'd be another one of these documents on my old computer, on the old QuickBooks that would have been the one I processed and gave to her.
Do you know when Grays received this quote for the Cymex machine?
I can't tell you when they got it because they're both dated 10/4. So if 10/4, I'd have to look back at a calendar date of when I actually went there. But if 10/4 was the first date, then when I modified this thing, it would have been a few weeks later because he called back and said, hey, we want to do the whole thing. And I don't remember the date that he called back on because at that point in time, he didn't call me on my phone. He called the shop and talked to me. So then I had to open this back up and redo it and try to give as much of a budgetary number as what I could without actually measuring the job.
Okay, and so you're saying you did not make any design for this machine?
Correct.
Before giving them this quote?
Correct.
You didn't come up with a bill of materials, correct?
Other than the things that were on this quote where I just threw things on here to get a budgetary number because he was going to go to a financial bank situation to get a consolidation loan of some kind so he could get capital money to build this.
Did you ever send Grace a SolidWorks drawing of a proposed machine?
No.
Did you ever produce one?
No.
So if there are drawings of a SolidWorks on SolidWorks at CFF that say Grays, you didn't do those, correct?
I'm going to say correct.
Okay. Did anybody else at CFF back in 2018 know how to use SolidWorks?
Kevin did a little bit. He knew how to open drawings and zoom in and
Kevin
look at stuff.
That time have had the knowledge to be able to put together a SolidWorks drawing of a proposed Cymex machine?
No, other than copying another one and renaming it, but no. Kevin's a smart kid, but he didn't mess with the SolidWorks that much other than opening and looking at drawings.
And so this quote was based on all the information you provided, correct?
Yes, Ron asked me if I could put together a quote to get some numbers so he could go to the bank with it. And I told him then, I said, well, I can get this thing as close as I can, but some of the prices aren't going to be updated. They're going to be old prices from when we did Man's Machine. And it had already been over a year and a half in between that time since we had done that. So I told him them prices are probably going to go up. And then depending on what the market is on the steel and how involved the job is. I said.
So which items on this Exhibit 8 did you simply take from Man's Machine?
Everything from not the white belt, but the more ringer requote, everything from there down. Would have been off of, them would be all similar things that were on Man's SE16.
Did you ever provide Man's with an updated quote based on on how you did it at Great Lakes, where you design it, get the bill of materials, get the pricing, figure it out, and then quote it?
Did I ever do that to Gray's job?
While you were at CFF?
No, I did not. There needed to be another visit out to Gray's to measure his machine. So no two more machines are the same.
And so in this case, you weren't actually issuing a quote that CFF would do this job for.
No, we were never bound by this, that we were going to do it for that number. Ron knew that that number was going to change due to updated pricing and a drawing to boot to what we were going to do.
Can you take a look at Exhibit 11 for me, please? 3 pages of drawings.
Yeah.
11.1, 11.2, 11.3.
Yep.
Have you seen any of these drawings before?
Yes, I have.
Where did you see them?
At CFF.
Okay, and what are they?
That is a moving spray bar system that is on Robert Mann's machine.
Okay. Are these drawings that you produced?
It is.
Okay, so you made these drawings of Mann's machine, correct?
This is what's on Robert Mann's machine, correct?
Okay. So you're saying this has nothing to do with Gray's?
100% no.
Okay, and you wouldn't have labeled it Gray's in the computer, would you?
Absolutely not. For the record, I never made drawings for Gray's machine. It wasn't a job.
Now, what was Gray's telling you was holding up this job? Was it financing?
Financing.
So from October, November of 18 until April of 2019, they didn't issue a purchase order, correct?
Correct. Is that, let me go back. I just want to make sure we're talking about the same date. This date of when I did the quote, that's when they went into processing after this date sometime. So this is dated 10/4, and then I redid it several weeks later. They would have went to the bank after that. So, and up through March, they still did not have their financing through.
Okay, and so are Exhibits 7 and 8 the only quotes that were sent to Gray's for this machine?
You would have to ask Penny that. To my knowledge, yes, but
Did you ever provide any information to anyone at CFF that would have changed Exhibit 8? Which is the 172.
after that,
Correct.
no, we never touched this quote again after I did it. It was touched the one time when he called back, and yeah, so Exhibit 7 and 8. 7 was the first one, and I'm going to presume by the date that's when it was when I did it, or when she entered it. So I would have done it either 10/3 or I finished it on 10/4, and then sometime later I did Exhibit 8. I mean, my version of it. And then after this was done, this was never revisited to them after that. We were totally waiting on Ron to get his financing done, which took for a long time. His financing didn't even get done until May or June of 19.
So after you'd already left.
Yeah.
So this quote, was it for a machine that would have the belts that would be the rugged machine?
Yeah,
Would that have been?
Yes, we were going to replace the belts on the machine.
And then it would have a system for scrubbing the machine with soap, correct? Cymex?
Yes.
Okay. And then it would have high pressure jets to rinse the brush.
Yes. Well, no, to wash.
To wash it.
To wash, not the rinse.
Okay. How does it rinse it?
The rinse is done on the back part of the machine.
Right, but with high pressure or not high pressure?
Not high pressure.
Okay, but
The high pressure system is part of the washing.
and then, but there's a separate rinsing system that's
Correct.
In this case, was on Gray's machine already, correct?
Correct.
Okay. But that was going to be replaced in this?
No.
Okay, you're going to leave that in this
Yes.
quote? Okay.
Yeah, there's nothing on here about a rear spray line.
And so so this machine that you were quoting here on Exhibit 8 would have also rinsed using the old Moore equipment that was there, right?
Yeah, this quote was to modify the existing machine that he had.
Yeah.
Yep.
So you were going to put something on top of it.
We were going to remove the 3 brush rail system that was on his machine, remove the crankcase mechanism and the 3-brush rail. That whole top section was come off. And then we were going to put this system, mount it on there and plumb everything and run it.
And so that at the end of the day, what you were quoting here would do all the same things, the feeding the rug, soaping and scrubbing it, rinsing it, wringing it out, and rolling it up using an electrical control box that the Man's machine did, correct?
Right. The machine already did that before. But yes, it was going to give a new electrical system, a new drive system to give it variable speed. And yes, it had scrubbing heads. It was going to have scrubbing heads like Robert Mann's machine.
And that would have been the second machine that you're aware of that would have used this Cymex scrubbers.
To my knowledge, yes.
And you had never built one of those and installed it on site, had you?
No, it was only the second one. So that was the first one to do it to.
And so this quote was for you to install this at the site?
Yes.
Okay. So you would have to build this new portion, correct?
Correct.
And then take that to the site
Yes.
and then attach it to the Moore's machine that was already there, correct?
Yes.
And you would have to make sure it all matched up, correct?
Right.
Okay.
Yep.
And you would also have to do refurbishing to the existing Man's machine?
Right. The refurbishing of the machine, the repair work would have been done before we put the new apparatus on.
And that would have been done by Greg's?
No, we were doing it.
Okay. And you were doing it on site?
Yes.
So you would have had to make 2 trips?
No, one.
One trip where you would take the apparatus out there that had been built off-site, correct?
Right. We would have hauled it in our truck and trailer. And we would have brought all the tools and the equipment. We would have brought extra angle iron and stuff like that on the trailer when we went. And Dennis and I would have been there for probably 10 days,
Okay.
probably.
And then you would have had to have put some new iron, new metal and sheet and stuff on the base that was already there, correct?
Yeah, underneath the wash bed, I was 100% certain the wash bed was going to have to be rebuilt.
And is that in here somewhere, or is that just labor?
The materials, miscellaneous material thing was going to count for the steel, and then everything else was just labor by the day.
Okay, so that's
So
$2,500.
So $2,500 was for miscellaneous steel.
Okay. But you had never actually done one of these Cymexes and put it on at the site, correct?
Correct, because this was the second go around of this. And the first one was done on site because it was a completely brand new machine.
And when you say on site, it was done at CFF, correct?
Yes, the Robert Mann machine was built there because it was a brand new machine.
Now, you build a machine for Great Lakes, correct?
Yes.
Okay. May I approach your honor?
You may.
Just so we have it a bit easier. It's J. That one. You won. You won. You won. Okay.
Yeah, you can initial that one, Sharon.
Yep. So this is Exhibit J. Do you recognize this?
No. Well, I mean, it's all line items that I would have created.
So the
Yeah.
first page of that, is that an email that you sent?
That's what this thing says, but I don't think I sent it. I think it was sent from Steve, but I don't know.
Is that a quote that Great Lakes sent to Gray's to build a rug washing machine for them?
Yes. Yep.
And is that a quote that you put together the information for?
I did.
And I apologize, but I gave away all of my copies here. Oh, okay, I'll use this in a minute. And This estimate on page 2 is dated 10/21/19.
Yep.
Correct?
Yep.
It says estimate number 3. Do you know what that number stands for?
It would have been just the third estimate that were ever printed off of QuickBooks.
Okay, and so was this the initial quote that you gave Gray's
Yes.
to build this machine for them?
Yep.
Okay. Did that change at all?
Yes.
Okay, and what changed?
There was a couple mistakes on this thing. One, I had a price for electrical, which we were just guessing for, well, the two things. Cymex 3 brush head mechanism, that should have been 3 and not 1. So that was the first thing that changed. And the second thing was the electrical package. I had a price on here of Ring Electrical of $2,000 and the Cymex electrical of $1,600. The $2,000 was just a guess number. I had no idea what the electrical was going to be. So when the new one came in, then it jumped up a lot. So I had to call him back up and let him know that them numbers had changed. And it was a change of, I don't know, roughly $16,000, roughly. So the number, if I recall right, the number went to 188 and something.
Since we're here and we've got that, may I approach, Your Honor?
You may.
No, I sort of said that after I'd already started, but.
So is this quote Exhibit J for a new machine for Gray's?
It's a quote for a new front part of their machine. So the job by the time I got changed, by the time Great Lakes and myself got involved, I had gone out there, measured the job, and we were going to do the similar thing to what I was going to do when I was at CFF. The Ron called me up and asked me a question: how much would it be to just, instead of rebuilding the front part of the machine while there, how much would it be for a whole brand new one? Because on the
All right.
okay, you probably don't need to know anything.
No, that's.
So we built a new machine from the ground up.
Okay,
The front half. Does that answer it?
it does. Thank you.
Can you take a look at Exhibit I?
Yep.
Okay. And the first page is some emails, and then the second page is an invoice. So I see you're copied on here. Do you recall receiving this email?
If I did, it's not something that I remember, but I recognize this thing because it was on Steve's desk because we discussed it.
So let's look at the second page of this.
Yep.
This is an invoice number 2914 dated 5/31/2020. Okay. Did you actually prepare this?
No.
Okay. This says in item number 1, newly designed spray bar machine, quote, 2019-37, $188,896.
Yeah, that would have been what the total of this other estimate should have been.
Okay, so
when the numbers came in to me correctively, that's what the number totaled out to be.
and you're saying most of that was in the electrical?
Electrical and the Cymexes should have been 3 on there instead of 1. That was the only 2 things that changed.
Okay, so
So the number total was 188,896.
and your understanding is that was to build this machine, correct?
Yes.
Your Honor, I would move to introduce Defendant's Exhibit I and Defendant's Exhibit J.
No objection, Judge. My objection would go to weight only.
I and J are admitted.
Now that we have J in here, let's put away, well, actually, let me finish up with I so that we can be done with it. There's some reductions on this bill.
Yes.
Okay, and it says the amount billed and funded by ESL FCU. Do you know what that is?
Amount billed. That was the financing company.
Okay.
So the financing company went off the original estimate number because that's what was submitted. And then by the time that I got my electrical quote and then realized the Cymax wasn't right, when I called him on it, that number was already submitted. So then Ron told me that he would have to just pay us after the fact, after we were done, the remainder of the money. Because he couldn't go back to the financing company and change it again.
And do you know if the financing company paid that money directly to Great Lakes
Yes, it did.
all at once?
No.
So over, as the project was being built?
Yes.
Okay.
It came over in increments.
So I want to take a look, I want you to now get in front of you Plaintiff's Exhibit 8 and the second page of J. Okay? I want to look at this and compare some of these things, okay? And have you explain, I apologize. There were some reductions in labor. Why were there reductions in labor?
Because of the, due to the first item on, you got to talk what, Jay?
Yeah.
The first line on there says Gray's front frame welded construction. That was the whole lower frame, the new lower frame for the front of that machine. So the reduction was due to the fact that I didn't have to cut apart the old one that was existing there. So due to COVID, they shut down. They hired a couple people locally to come in with a big scrap bin, cut torches, and use their fork truck, and they cut apart the whole front part of the machine.
So your crew didn't have to do that,
So yeah, I didn't have to do it. So when I knew a week ahead of time, well, I knew that he was doing it ahead of time, but I didn't know how far it was going to be. So when we went out there, the whole front of the machine was completely gone. There was no existence of it at all. So we bill typically, I mean, what I've always built is based on time and material in this type of job. So it's basically by the day, or if I work a half a day, then that's how the billing goes. So when we did the install, I just tracked the down time that we had, and when we packed up and left, I told him I would send him a revised number of what he owed, so we could settle up afterwards. So that's what brought up I.
But in Exhibit J, thank you. In Exhibit J on this estimate, the first line is Gray's front frame welded construction.
Yep.
So Great Lakes built that, correct?
Yes.
At at Great Lakes facility,
Correct.
and then shipped that along with the other part out to Rochester and installed both of them.
Yes.
Okay. And that front frame wasn't part of the quote that you did when you were at CEFF, correct?
Doing the repair work on his original front frame was on there, but doing the whole frame was not.
Okay.
He didn't decide to do that until, I don't even know, I'd have to look at when I did the drawing for it, but.
So
Let me stop you for just a second. What'd you find out? Yeah. Is he across the street here? Yeah, I will have to, because otherwise I won't be able to see him until tomorrow. So I'll just have to take a break to do that.
11:50.
Pardon?
You want to do it at 11:50?
Well, it might be a little late for that. How about 11:45? Yeah. All right. Sorry, I've got a PPO violator that needs to be arraigned. So I'm not going to be here this afternoon. I want to do it this morning. So go-
or you could just
Just
leave them in
leave-
the
I can just leave them there. I might do that anyway.
No, I was just joking. So just so the record is clear. Okay, since this is live, right?
It's live.
I swear I was joking. Let's go back to comparing Exhibit J estimate with Exhibit 8, okay? And the first thing is, was there anything in Exhibit 8 that was not included on the Great Lakes estimate?
The belts. The belts aren't anywhere on the Great Lakes.
And so those are where on Exhibit 8?
It's the first part line item. More belt, conveyor belt.
So there was a light-duty conveyor belt of 25 quantities. That,
Yep,
what is that, numbers of them?
that's 25 belts on a 16-foot machine.
Right, and so how many were there? I see Gray's white belts, 25 quantity.
Oh, yeah, there's, I'm sorry. Yeah, they're there.
So is there anything that was on this quote in Exhibit 8 while you were at Centrum Force Fabrication that wasn't on the quote you gave Great Lakes Water Jet, you gave Gray's from Great Lake Water Jet a year later?
I don't know. I'd have to go through and scratch off every item.
Well,
I would guess no. Is there something you're pointing out?
I might be able to make it easier for you. I'm trying to find my reference, I apologize. So do you recall when your deposition was taken by Zoom on March 8th, 2021?
Yep.
And I asked you to refresh your recollection. There weren't any items on that Centrum Force Fabrication quote that were eliminated when Great Lakes Waterjet did their bill. And your answer was correct. They still need all those components to make the machine. Does that remind you?
I guess I still don't know where.
So in your deposition, you said that there wasn't anything left off, that they used everything on the Great Lakes quote that was in the Centrum Force Fabrication quote, correct?
For the most of the parts, yeah, I would assume. I don't. I guess what's your question?
My question was, you made this Exhibit 8, you made this quote while you were at Centrum Force to give the Grays to get financing, correct?
Yes.
Okay. The parts that are described in making this upgrade, all of those are also included in the quote that you gave Grays when they actually got the financing.
Yeah, I can't think of anything that's left off other than, the miscellaneous steel obviously is not on there because we didn't do that. So that's not on.
And so the quote Exhibit 8 at Centrum Force Fabrication was $172,441.
Yep.
And the quote at Gray's was $171,776, correct?
Correct, but it should have been 188,896.
Right. But this is the quote, Exhibit J, the 171,000 that actually got funded by the financing, correct?
Correct.
Exact dollars, right?
Yeah, that's exactly what yes, the financing company paid that number.
Okay. Now, let's take a look at, I've got a couple of questions here. So in Exhibit J, you have Cymex 3, Cymex brush head ×3 complete, quantity 1, and you have $2,925. Okay? The MSB Cymex 3 that is described on the second page of Exhibit 8 says 3 Cymex brush machine heads complete with air cylinder control for lifting. $25,100.
Correct.
Are those Cymex things the same?
No.
Okay, what's the difference in why is the Center and Force quote $25,000 and the Great Lakes quote $2,900?
Because I made the Cymex assemblies and the moving spray bar assembly thing different in the package that I put together at Great Lakes. So the moving spray bar head unit with the 8 washers had all the components and everything that would house the Cymexes built into it. So you could have the Cymexes on there or off of there. And when I did the one for Robert Mann's machine, it counted all that aluminum work for the Cymex heads, how we mounted it into that quote. So that number that's 2,900 should have been times 3, because that's how much the parts were for each head. So each head value of the head itself is $2,925.
Was that marked up at all on the Great Lakes estimate?
That number?
Correct.
The 2,925?
Yeah.
I don't recall.
So when you made the estimate that is Exhibit 8 for CFF,
Yep.
did you include a profit number?
Yeah, I would assume I had a 30% margin in the stuff from Great Lakes as well.
And so for both of these, you are including a 30% profit somewhere in these details, correct?
Correct.
And is it sort of uniformly across all of these details? Or are there some that you can mark up to get to that 30%?
30. I try to put 30% on everything, but we did not do 30% on the ringers when we did the ringers, because I was trying to match pricing of what was promised to him or quoted to him originally through CFF, because we were going to use remanufactured ringers or re-rubbered ringers from there. So the steel cost isn't in there. We didn't have that. So when we did the ringers for Grays, we had to buy brand new steel, which cost us a lot more money. So none of that was marked up to Grays when we did it out of a courtesy thing, because he was subject to pay more money because CFF wouldn't do the job.
So you're saying that Great Lakes cut the price
On the
raise
on the ringers.
on the ringers, and how much are the ringers? What's the difference here?
Roughly $9,000.
So I see, so let me see where this is. So where are the ringers on Exhibit 8? Are they the SEW09?
The ringer 16 more. So I sold them to him for $13,973. And the other one ringer was at $11,225.
So it was more, but you said that you actually didn't charge him for some of that.
So the price of the rubber has gone up. I mean, just due to everything else, and steel's gone up a ton.
And you didn't charge any of those increases to the customer when you quoted bit for getting the job.
We covered our cost and selling it at $13,973. We did not make any margin on that job.
So where did Great Lakes make their 30%?
On everything else except for that line item.
Were there anything that was on Exhibit J that Great Lakes built that wasn't on the quote from CFF?
Just the Grays front frame.
So what is and I'm looking at Exhibit J, what is an MSB 16 top frame with 3 wash rollers for $18,250?
What is that?
Yes.
That is the stainless base frame that has the wash rollers in it that the moving spray bar mounts to.
So let me make sure I think I understand this. Tell me if I'm wrong. There's a base.
No. If you go to your exhibit on the back, the picture of it, right here, the very first one, 11.1, the wash frame that you're referring to right there is the bottom piece right there.
it's,
That lower whole piece right there with them rollers in it.
Thank you.
and so when it's called a top frame, it's not the way up top of the whole thing.
No,
It's
that's-
the top of the base, right?
That's the lower base part, but if it rides on top of the belting conveyor system.
Right.
Yeah.
Where is that on Exhibit 8?
Exhibit 8, that's,
The CFF?
where's that on that?
Yeah.
That would be part of the SE16 MSB 8 complete. That frame mechanism thing would be enrolled in that. That's why it's $40,000.
Okay. And you have the MSB 16 moving spray bar 16 on the J. Was that part of this MSB 8 complete? Same thing?
No, well, them two things made up that.
Right, so that's almost $47,000, those two things, correct?
Correct.
And you were quoting them for CFF at 40,000.
Right.
Okay, so that's actually an increase in what it's gonna cost, it's gonna cost Grays on this Great Lakes estimate, correct?
Right, it's more money.
Right, it's more money.
Yes.
So how is it that you could get to the same number if you're using 30%?
Because the real number is 188.
Okay, because this was a mistake.
This was a mistake. And then, and as soon as, within days of me sending him this notice, I got my quote back from the electrician and the price jumped up. And then it made me relook at this thing. And then I called Ron and told him, hey, I made a big mistake on this. The updated price of electrical is this. And I had the Cymex problem. So then that changes the number to the 188. This estimate, to my knowledge, never reflected that, never got changed. This is done through a different internal program on Steve's computer, and he did it internally on his end. So I didn't have anything to do with that other than a phone call.
So if you recall, your answers to interrogatories said that you designed it, then you went out and got internal and external costs for a lot of the parts. And then after that, you were able to price it and figure out and put it together and issue this quote, correct?
You're holding,
J, sorry, my mistake.
yeah, for Great Lakes.
Right, for Great Lakes.
Yep.
Right, so that was the process that you went out there in August of 2018, correct? 2019, correct?
Correct.
To Grace.
Yeah, to measure it off.
For Great Lakes.
Yes.
And then came back and and eventually in October, gave them this estimate that they could take to the bank.
No. Well, this number went to the bank. Yeah, he already had the banking process was already done. So as soon as he got this, he submitted them numbers to his bank, I believe. You can ask Ron when he's on.
But to be able to put this together like this, you had to go through all those steps, right?
Yeah, I came back from measuring his job and I started measuring the machine. And then as we tweaked that between going back and forth between him and I, then I came up with that price.
And you were able to use SolidWorks to make that initial design after you measured it, right?
Yes, we have SolidWorks 19.
Okay. And did they have that at Great Lakes when you started?
Yes.
So the estimate that you gave on Exhibit 8, when you were at Centrum Force, so they could get financing, you didn't go through all those steps, did you?
I did not go through the whole drawing process and build the job, no.
And get a bill of materials or any of that? You didn't do that for this, right?
Correct. Everything was,
Because you had the man's information, correct?
yeah, I pulled information from Robert Mann's job and pulled over the things to give him a number.
Right.
Yes.
And so these numbers, which if we go back and look through them, some of them are identical to the numbers that you quoted at CFF, correct?
I don't
Some of the
know.
things are identical.
I don't know what's identical.
Well, let's take a look. I think I have them written down. So the picker roller, that's the same on those quotes, isn't it? $48.75.
Yep.
Okay. The ringer at 2,800 is the same thing, right? SEW 0915, right?
That's a gearbox system.
It's a gearbox.
Yes.
Same exact price.
Yep. Yep.
The pump station is the same, right? One pump complete. $15,000, right?
Yep.
Same thing. And many of the other ones are extremely close, correct?
Yep.
So this information which came from Mann's, without you having to go through the steps, you're saying that you couldn't put this estimate together without going through all those same steps at Great Lakes, correct?
I went through. I don't want to answer
You
you.
didn't use any of this knowledge that you had at Centrum that you could put together a quote without going through the process in coming up with this quote for Great Lakes, correct?
Right. I had to get individual prices. Like the pump station thing on there is a complete assembly. So there's a couple trays. It's set up so you can do 2 motors on it at one time. The electrical box is set up to do 2. We only did 1, but he has an option of adding a second one.
Did Ron Silvernail or anyone at Gray's tell you that they needed the quote to come in at the same number as the quote you had made at CFF?
I don't believe so. I don't remember any conversation with
that.
that.
Just is a monstrous coincidence that these 2 quotes are within $1,000 of each for this big machine that you admit you didn't always charge 30% for when you did at Great Lakes.
Again, this number on the bottom is not correct. So the number should be that 188 thing. So we're not within $1,000. So even if you take away because I made that frame and he removed that, well, we were planning to do the work there both ways. So that would be the number you got to compare it to. So the 188 number should be here. So if you're going to make a comparison, make sure it's apples to apples.
Okay, so you're saying that the Centrum Force Fabrication quote that you put together the numbers for should have been higher.
It most definitely would have been higher than what it is now. Once I went there and measured it off and we come up with an exact plan. 100% that number was not enough. And on the phone, when Ron wanted me to come up with this number for him to go to the bank, he knew then I was going to have to come back out there and then we were going to have to get up to date and exacting plan of what the job would be before that number would be finalized. So he knew that.
And you're saying he knew that while you were still at CFF?
Yes. He knew that when he called me and wanted me to get him this number. I told him I could only get him close, but it wouldn't be exact.
When you left CFF, the day you gave notice, did Gray's have financing in place?
No.
So they couldn't have built this machine right away with Centrum Force Fabrication, correct?
No, they couldn't do anything until they had their financing to move forward. Correct.
And they already had a quote from Centrum Force, which you had told them was going to actually be low, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so they knew this wasn't going to be enough to cover it.
Correct.
Okay. But that's what they were getting their financing for.
Well, they got financing for a lot bigger number than this.
Okay.
They did some other things with money.
Now, when did they tell you that they got financing?
May or June, probably closer to June, but you have to ask Ron.
So after you were no longer with CFF?
Correct.
Quick question, I forgot. On the Cymax machine that you built for Mann's, did that have high pressure jets for the second for the rinse part, or just regular water pressure jets?
It had high pressure. It had 2 high pressure rinse lines directly on the moving spray bar apparatus, and then another one on the final rinse for the just before the ringer.
Which would not have been.
That was high pressure too. He had high pressure lines on all of them, and he ran different pressures on all 3.
And did you ever offer that to Greg's?
Yes.
And on which of these was that a?
None. It was verbally offered if he wanted when I was there, when I was measuring the job, and he didn't want to do that at the time due to the expense, and he wanted to just use his stock standard rinsing that was on the machine already.
When you built this Gray's machine, they had to get new ringer rollers, right?
Yes.
Did Great Lakes get the old ringer rollers?
Yes.
Why?
Because the only way I could ever recoup any of the money from the discount we gave him was to have the ringers back so we could sell them
And
or reuse them for
what
another
did you
job.
do with the ringers that came back? What did Great Lakes do?
They put them over by the saw and stored them there for a long time. Then they sold them.
And in order to sell them, did they have to have them revulcanized?
No, sold them as is.
Sold them as is. And who did they sell them to? Somebody in the rug washing
Somebody-
business?
Yeah, somebody wanted to build a machine. I don't know if am I supposed to name somebody?
So here's my question.
Do you need the name?
I don't need the name because you
Okay.
just said they're in the rug washing business. So after you did this one thing, you then sold equipment for rug washing machines to some other rug washing manufacturer.
I did not. I didn't have anything
Your
to do with it.
employer did.
Yeah, that's
Was
on that.
that part of the agreement that you had worked out with Grace? That they would get those ringer roller back so that they could be resold to another rug washing person?
The ringer thing was on an exchange thing because I didn't charge him for the markup on the thing. So that's how we were going to recoup money later on.
But that's nowhere on this estimate.
No, it was a verbal thing with Ron.
And I don't think it was on Exhibit I either, was it? Where the final bill, it wasn't a reduction for the.
It was based on an exchange.
Right, but there was, I don't.
It says exchange with core exchange credit. So if we didn't get the ringers back, then that price of 11,000 thing would have jumped up to 17,000.
Where is the, I see hotel allowance, meal cost, labor hours.
You look at more 16 ringer recoat with core. See with the WC, it says recondition and recoat 16-foot ringer with customer core exchange credit. So that means
I'm sorry, which one are we on?
you're on 8.
Okay,
It's the second line item past the more when you get to the parts.
okay.
More 16-foot ringer recoat. That price counts that the core's coming back, that
Okay.
CFF gets it.
Correct. And so where is that on J?
I didn't have a thing that said, I don't think I had a thing that said with core. We were just automatically bringing them back.
And Exhibit I, which is the invoice after this project is all done, doesn't have a reduction in the price for the value of those cores, correct?
No, I gave him a price on the ringers based on that we were bringing the cores back.
Verbal, not on, yes.
Right, not on paper, not written down. It's just verbal.
All right, I need to,
You need to get somebody,
I got to deal with Mr. Bacon, so we'll see you back on our return date.
okay.
John, do you have that paperwork?
Do you want these back for next
Yeah,
time?
I will try and keep track of the witness. Your Honor, you're gonna keep yours?
Oh, yeah, I can hold on.
Thank you.
Sheriff's Office, looking at the end.
Hi, this is Judge LaFlamme. Can you bring Mr. Maurice Bacon to my Zoom room, please?
Well, I hate to give
Yes,
you.
sir, we're sending him on right now.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
a
21, 14, 12.
Oh, okay.
Because I knew
I must have missed it. You did a sleight of hand on that one.
I knew I needed it.
Yeah, day and a half.
Oh, yeah.
Good morning. You are Marshawn Bacon.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Bacon, did you receive a copy of the probable cause information sheet that says what it is you're accused of doing to violate this personal protective order?
No, sir, I didn't.
All right, I'm going to read it to you.
Okay.
It says, while attempting to locate a missing / possible endangered person, her phone was being pinged in the area of Wall Street and South Cooper Street. Sergeant Lilly located the missing person's vehicle driving southbound away from an address from Laurel Lane. After the vehicle was stopped, the driver was identified as Marshawn Bacon. A few minutes later, Central Dispatch received a call from a Laura Bacon stating Marshawn Bacon was at her residence and she has a PPO against him. Marshawn Bacon was transported to the Jackson Sheriff's Office for lodging, and Officer Johnson read him his Miranda warning. Marshawn Bacon said Laura called him to the residence to babysit their kids. Marshawn said arrived at 1260 Laurel Lane and took shower. Marshawn said he wanted to sleep, but decided to get back in the car and leave the residence. I need to advise you that you have the right to contest this charge at a contempt hearing. You are entitled to a lawyer's assistance at the contempt hearing, since it's always possible for a PPO violation, a jail sentence of up to 93 days. You are entitled to a court-appointed attorney if you want one and you're unable to afford one. Would you like me to appoint a lawyer to represent you in this matter?
No, thank you, Your Honor.
Is it your intention to contest this violation?
What does contest mean, sir?
That means you're going to dispute it. You're going to claim that you didn't violate the PPO.
No, sir, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to be completely honest here, sir.
All right. Are you interested in entering a plea to the offense today?
Yes, I am, sir.
All right. Well, before you do that, I need to put you under oath.
Yes,
Would you
sir.
raise your right hand, please?
Yes, sir.
You do swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do, sir.
I need you to state your full name for the record.
Marshawn Maurice Bacon.
You can put your hand down now, Mr. Bacon. Do you understand that by pleading guilty, you are giving up the right to a contested hearing and your right to legal representation?
Yes, sir, I do.
Do Do you understand that the maximum penalty for violation of a PPO is 93 days in jail and or a fine of up to $500?
Yes, sir, I do.
Do you understand that any appeal of your sentence will be by leave and not by right?
Yes, Your Honor.
Do you have any questions about anything I've told you so far?
No, Your Honor.
Has anyone threatened you or promised you anything to get you to enter into a plea today?
No, Your Honor.
Are you entering this plea of your own free will?
Yes, I am, Your Honor.
I need you to tell me, how do you plead to the PPO violation?
I plead guilty, Your Honor.
All right, I need you to tell me what it is you did to be in violation of this PPO.
What I did was, well, I went to the home because I was called there by her to come watch the kids because she had some errands to run. And the problem didn't occur. You know, she uses the PPO violation for when I leave the house, not for when I come to the house. And I'm just being completely honest. And if you even read the police report, she didn't call until minutes after I was about to leave. I took a shower. I've been there. But when I was about to leave with this woman that she thought it was a significant other, that's when she called you guys. And if you notice in the police report, Your Honor, it says the vehicle, the phone was pinged in that area. And like I said, the police were already coming because of the ping. The police weren't called by my wife until I was leaving the premises. So she uses this PPO for when I leave the house, not when I come. So, and I feel like that's very much an issue, sir.
You understand that whether she gives you permission or not, you are prohibited from being at her residence and you are prohibited from being in her presence.
Oh, I didn't know that. I thought if she said that I could be there, I could be there. So that's where I'm going along at. I shouldn't be there by any means necessary, huh?
You should never be in violation of this PPO ever under any circumstance, just because she says it's okay. She can't give you permission to violate the PPO.
Okay. I didn't know that. So if she calls me and says, hey, come over, I shouldn't be there.
You cannot go as long as this PPO remains in place.
Okay.
So
okay.
When were you arrested for this incident?
Yesterday, it had to have been about 8 o'clock in the morning, sir.
So you spent all day yesterday and then overnight in jail up until now?
Yes, sir.
Was there any violence or altercation between you and Ms. Bacon during the time you were at her house?
No, sir. The only problem occurred is when I was about to leave, and she didn't want me to leave.
All right. I do accept the plea. I find that it was knowingly, understandingly, and voluntarily made. That indeed what you did was in violation of the PPO, and ignorance of the fact that she can't give you permission to violate the PPO is not an excuse.
Okay.
You spent parts of 2 days in jail. I'm going to sentence you to 2 days in jail, and I'm going to credit you with the 2 days that you've already served. I'm going to release you. I'm going to give you a very, very strong admonishment, sir. I won't hear this the next time you come back.
Yes, sir.
You say, well, she invited me over.
Yes, sir.
You're going to get hit a whole lot harder than this.
Okay, sir.
So I trust that you've learned your lesson about PPOs, and we'll get the paperwork processed so that you can be released today. Are you being held for anything else?
I'm not aware of that. I know I did have a warrant for driving unsuspended. I don't know if they're holding me for that or what the situation is.
If there is an outstanding warrant, there's a very strong likelihood that they will continue to hold you until you answer to that warrant. I can only release you for this PPO violation. If you're being
Okay.
held for anything else, that's going to be up to whatever judge that matter is in front of.
Okay. I appreciate you, sir.
All right, we'll get that processed, and that concludes our hearing.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Yeah.